Some opinions matter more than others, especially when they come from someone who spent a lifetime inside the game. Trevor Brooking played alongside World Cup winners, England internationals, some of football's greatest names. He knew exactly what greatness looked like. Yet when he looked back on his career, one teammate always stood above the rest: Billy Bonds. That surprises many people, because Billy Bonds was never the loudest name, never the biggest star, and never the player who demanded the headlines. So what did Trevor Brooking see that so many others missed? Why did one of West Ham's greatest players continue to speak about Billy Bonds with such admiration, long after they had stopped playing together? The answer isn't found in one match or one season. It's a story built on trust, sacrifice, loyalty, and a partnership that helped define an era at West Ham United. It all started with the arrival of a young player from Charlton Athletic, a signing that would change the club's history forever. If you enjoy real football stories like this, subscribe to the channel. Now, let's begin. Billy Bonds arrived at West Ham in 1967. There were no huge headlines, no superstar expectations. He arrived from Charlton Athletic, determined to earn his place. Ron Greenwood saw his value almost immediately. Billy Bonds wasn't just another defender. He could play at right back, in midfield, or at centre back. Whatever West Ham needed, he delivered. Around the same time, another young talent was making his mark: Trevor Brooking. Graceful on the ball, calm under pressure, always thinking one pass ahead. Billy Bonds was different. Relentless, dependable, always willing to do the work others couldn't. They weren't the same type of footballer. They didn't need to be. When Brooking moved forward, Bonds covered the space behind him. When matches became physical, Bonds never took a step back. He gave West Ham balance, protection, and complete reliability. Season after season, their understanding grew stronger. Not through words, but through complete trust. Years later, when Trevor Brooking was asked to name West Ham's greatest ever signing, he didn't hesitate. His answer was Billy Bonds, a remarkable choice, considering the legendary players he had shared a dressing room with. Why Billy Bonds? What made him stand above the rest? To answer that, you first have to forget the reputation, because Billy Bonds was far more than the fearless competitor most supporters remember. Ask most football supporters about Billy Bonds, and you'll hear the same words. Committed, fearless, a born leader, all true, but they tell only half the story. The hard tackles became his trademark. They also became a distraction. Because while people admired his determination, many overlooked the footballer behind it. Trevor Brooking never made that mistake. He saw Billy Bonds every day, in training, in matches, under pressure. He knew there was far more to his game than strength alone. Billy Bonds wasn't limited to one role. He could defend, control midfield, carry the ball forward, and read danger long before it arrived. That intelligence made him invaluable. It also made him incredibly difficult to replace. His versatility wasn't a coincidence. It was one of his greatest strengths. Few players could adapt so naturally. Even fewer could maintain such a high standard wherever they played. Then came another reminder of just how complete he really was. In one remarkable league season, Billy Bonds scored 13 goals. An extraordinary return for a player remembered mainly for tackles and leadership. It proved what Trevor Brooking had always understood. Billy Bonds wasn't simply winning the ball back. He could change games at the other end of the pitch as well. Years later, Brooking reflected on how people often misunderstood his teammate. Many saw the determination. He saw the complete footballer, the man who could solve almost any problem a manager faced. And before long, West Ham would ask Billy Bonds to carry a responsibility that only a handful of players could ever handle. Replacing the greatest captain the club had ever known. Every great captain eventually leaves. The difficult part is finding the man to replace him. At West Ham, that challenge seemed almost impossible. Bobby Moore wasn't just the club captain. He was a World Cup winner, a football icon, the man who had defined an era. Who could possibly follow that? West Ham didn't need another Bobby Moore. They needed someone who could lead in his own way. As the club looked around the dressing room, one name kept standing out: Billy Bonds. He had never asked for the armband, never campaigned for it. He simply earned the respect of everyone around him. Training after training, match after match, challenge after challenge. When the decision was finally made, the responsibility fell to Billy Bonds. It was one of the biggest honours in English football, and one of the hardest. Trevor Brooking understood why the club made that choice. Years later, he said Billy Bonds was the best captain he had ever played under. Not because he delivered great speeches, not because he demanded attention, but because every single day, he set the standard himself. If Billy Bonds asked for commitment, he had already shown it. If he asked for courage, he had already lived it. That kind of leadership couldn't be faked. It couldn't be taught. It had to be earned. Billy Bonds earned it. And under his captaincy, West Ham would soon chase one of the greatest nights in the club's history. Billy Bonds had become the leader West Ham trusted. Now came their biggest test: Europe. Every round brought tougher opponents, higher pressure, greater expectations. But Billy Bonds never changed. He competed the same way he always had. Every tackle mattered. Every loose ball mattered. Every minute mattered. Trevor Brooking was right beside him. Together, they helped drive West Ham towards another European final. For the supporters, it felt like history was waiting. One more victory. One more unforgettable night. Instead, it ended in heartbreak. West Ham fell short in the 1976 European Cup Winners' Cup final. The dream was over. The disappointment was enormous. But defeat never changed Billy Bonds. He refused to disappear. He refused to make excuses. Trevor Brooking later reflected that this was one of Billy Bonds' greatest qualities. Whether West Ham won or lost, his standards never changed. He carried himself exactly the same. That consistency earned respect inside the dressing room, long before it earned applause from the stands. Many players are remembered for lifting trophies. Billy Bonds was remembered for something different: the way he responded when the trophy slipped away. And the greatest test of his loyalty was still waiting just around the corner. Football can change quickly. One season you're competing for trophies. The next, you're fighting to survive. West Ham learned that the hard way. Relegation hit the club hard. For many players, it was the perfect excuse to leave. Billy Bonds never looked for one. He stayed. Not because it was easy, because he believed the club deserved better days. Offers came. Speculation followed. But Billy Bonds remained where he felt he belonged. Trevor Brooking never forgot that decision. He admired the loyalty, the commitment, the refusal to walk away when West Ham needed leaders the most. Billy Bonds asked no one to stay with him. He simply stayed himself. That example spread through the dressing room. Supporters saw a captain who refused to abandon the club. Teammates saw a man whose actions matched every word. Years later, Brooking reflected that Billy Bonds represented everything West Ham wanted to stand for: honesty, commitment, and responsibility. Not only when things were going well, but especially when they weren't. His loyalty was soon rewarded. In 1980, Bonds captained West Ham to FA Cup glory. A year later, he led them back to the First Division as champions. And yet, for everything Billy Bonds gave to his club, football still denied him one honour many believed he had earned. By now, Billy Bonds had proved himself year after year: a leader, a captain, one of the most dependable players in English football. Yet one question refused to disappear: why wasn't he playing more for England? For many supporters, it never made sense. Week after week, Billy Bonds delivered for West Ham. Season after season, his standards never dropped. But international recognition never truly matched his club career. The biggest heartbreak came in 1981. Billy Bonds finally looked set to play a major role for England. Then disaster struck. He suffered broken ribs. The injury ruled him out of England's match against Brazil at Wembley. The debut he had waited years for was gone. Trevor Brooking knew how cruel football could be. Talent wasn't always enough. Timing mattered. Luck mattered. And sometimes, even the best professionals watched their biggest opportunities disappear through no fault of their own. Billy Bonds never complained. He never looked for sympathy. He returned the only way he knew how: by working, by competing, by leading West Ham once again. That quiet resilience became one of the qualities Brooking admired most. Billy Bonds never allowed disappointment to define him. He simply kept moving forward. But after giving almost everything to West Ham, the hardest chapter of his career was still to come. Billy Bonds had given West Ham almost everything. Years of commitment, years of leadership, years of putting the club before himself. Few players had represented the badge with greater pride. It seemed impossible to imagine West Ham without him. Then, football changed. Billy Bonds stepped into management. Like he had as a player, he gave everything. Trevor Brooking later reflected that football can sometimes be brutally unfair. Loyalty doesn't always guarantee the ending you deserve. Bonds took West Ham back into the top flight. But in 1994, the club chose Harry Redknapp. Bonds refused another role and resigned. For supporters, it was a tragic ending. Billy Bonds left the club he loved. But he never stopped being part of West Ham. Supporters still remembered the captain, the teammate, the leader. The man who never gave less than everything. Time passed. The disappointment slowly faded. But Billy Bonds' legacy only became stronger. And in the years that followed, Trevor Brooking would deliver one final tribute. A tribute that explained exactly why Billy Bonds meant so much to him. One that would define his legacy forever. Football moves on. New stars arrive. New records are broken. But Trevor Brooking's opinion never changed. Years after they stopped playing together, he was still asked the same question. Who was West Ham's greatest ever signing? His answer was immediate. Billy Bonds. Not because they were friends, because he had seen everything. The sacrifices, the standards, the leadership, the loyalty, the consistency, day after day, season after season. Then came the tribute that said it all. Trevor Brooking once admitted he would trust Billy Bonds with his life. In football, respect rarely runs deeper than that. Trust isn't built by one great performance. It's earned over years. Billy Bonds earned it every single day. He never chased attention. He never demanded praise. He simply did his job, again and again and again. West Ham later honoured him with the Billy Bonds stand, a permanent reminder of a man who devoted almost 3 decades to the club. But perhaps his greatest legacy isn't a stand. It's the respect he earned from those who shared the dressing room with him. When Trevor Brooking named Billy Bonds as West Ham's greatest ever signing, he wasn't making a headline. He was delivering a verdict. One built on years of watching greatness from just a few yards away. If you enjoyed this story, let us know which football legend we should cover next. And subscribe for more stories from football's greatest players, greatest clubs, and the moments that shaped the game.